talk is going to be fairly interactive. It's called Games We Play. So we are all going to try and play some games and try to see if there is something interesting that we can do in terms of analyzing them. Okay, I just want to make sure that the audio is working here. Just give me a second. Okay, hopefully there's no echo. So, all right. So, welcome again to the session on Games We Play. Can you all hear me at the back comfortably? Okay, awesome. And this is also the first time that I'm doing a talk where I have to switch back and forth between, because we're going to, so normally these are games that you can play on pen and paper. So I'm actually going to give you a PDF template that you can print out and go back and play if you want to. But I wasn't sure about whether we'll be able to do it like that here. So we're going to play, I'll use Mentimeter to collectively take your inputs on what we should do. So I'll be going back and forth between two screens a little bit. So I will request your patience as we do this. So we're going to begin by playing some games, get some experience, and then try and develop some theory around it. Okay. So let me see if I can go back to sharing my iPad screen. Okay, so the first game we are going to play is called Domineering. Normally this is played on a printed grid. Any n by n grid will do. It's normally played on a printed grid where you have dominoes. Have you seen dominoes, these 2x1 blocks? So basically players take turns to try and cover the board with dominoes. Here the player who goes first, so we have to pick orientations. The player who goes first places the dominoes vertically, and the player who plays second places the dominoes horizontally. Okay? Now, whenever I tell you something about a game, what is one question that is at the top of your mind? How do you win, right? So you keep placing dominoes, but how do you win? So there are cooperative games where all players try to work together towards a common goal. I don't know if you've played cooperative games before. There's a Japanese card game called Hanabi, which is a very popular example of a cooperative card game. So it's a knowledge exchange game where cards are distributed and you can see everybody else's cards, but you cannot see yours. Okay, and that's true for everyone. Everyone sees what everyone else has, and they cannot see their own cards. And on your turn, you have to discard a card, but you have to do it in a way that you're building some structure. So it's a very interesting mechanics where everybody is trying to come together to achieve something. But we will mostly look at competitive play, where you're playing against your opponent and only one of you wins, and hopefully we are all playing to win. Okay. In fact, there are officially games where you play to lose, in the sense that you take the rule and switch the winning condition. Those are called Misra games. We won't be talking about Misra games either. We are going to be just talking about, normal, they're literally called normal games in textbooks also. Okay. So here, the person who wins is the last player to make a move. Okay. So if on your turn you're stuck and you cannot make a move anymore, then you lose. Okay. All right. So just to make sure, although we got some warm up already, I'm going to ask you who wins this game, and I'm going to ask you to go and vote on Mentimeter. So let's. Okay, I didn't want you to be biased by the responses, but I think that may be a little too late for that. I'm trying to figure out if I can show you this image in full, so just give me a minute. You can see the image on your screens, right? On your screens. Okay, it used to have a thing where it said show image only, but I don't see it. So okay, you're stuck with seeing the image only on your screen, I guess. Okay. All right, so we did correct for a little bit of that bias. More of you have voted. Horizontal is currently in the majority. From the image alone, you really cannot recover who played what in which turn, but you can say something about the parity of the moves. Okay, so let's see if we can go back to this image here. So, right. So all the vertical blocks were played by the first player and all the horizontal blocks were played by the second player. Okay. All I care about is who got the last move, right? So let's see if, sorry, that's not what I want. So the vertical player makes some move, let's say this one. It's not important which one. Okay, so the vertical player could have played any of these first, but I don't care which one. I just care about like who got the last move, right? So the horizontal player went next. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the vertical player gets all the odd numbered turns, and the horizontal player gets all the even numbered turns. Okay. And if the board is completely filled, as it is in this case, then all the 8 possible turns were played. And who was the player who made the last move? Horizontal, right? So the horizontal player wins because they made the last move. So even though the board is fully filled, and that's why the vertical player cannot play, if he cannot play or if he or she cannot play, they lose. That's just the rule. Okay? So, so hopefully that's clear. Right. If I told you that it was such that horizontal went first, then the argument would flip and you know that the vertical player would have won. Exactly. It's a good point. Alright. So now what we are going to do is, we're going to play domineering online, and we're going to play a few games to get a sense of, there should now be hopefully questions in your mind, like can the horizontal player always guarantee themselves a win? Can the first player guarantee themselves a win no matter how the other player is playing? That's the main question you ask with these kinds of games. So let me take you to an online version of domineering where we can play a few games together. Let me make sure that my Mentimeter and domineering instances are side by side. Okay, so this is a simulation made by somebody called Kyle Brook. He is at, I believe he is okay, I should double check the affiliation, but he's at Florida, and I think he has a whole list of games on his website. So these are these are many games that he has implemented, and the game I want to play with you is domineering. So let's pick a 4x4 grid to begin with, and let's play against, who do you want to play against? We could play against a random player, we could play against, okay, let's try playing against easy AI, medium AI, you have a preference? How confident are you feeling? Okay, it's our first game, so let's do easy AI. Okay. And the rules are what they are. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, so okay, we do get the choice of do we want to be the first player or the second player, okay? We can choose to be the second player, but let's try playing this as first player first, okay? So one thing is that if you, okay, you have to tell me, so let's say we are playing vertical, okay? If you give me a certain row and column number, whatever grid you tell me, I'll take that as the bottom of the domino that has to be placed. Okay. So I'm just going to take the majority vote on this. There is no fifth row, sorry, we will play 5x5 later, but please don't vote for 5. Okay, you might also ask like which way are we counting. So let's just do the traditional XY coordinate from bottom to top. So the bottom row is the first row and so on, and left to right. So the first column is the leftmost column. Right, right. Should probably do a... Alright. So let's see. Everybody wants to go in the middle row, there's no ambiguity. So middle row, well, it's not exactly middle, but third row. Which column? Okay, a lot of you want to do third row, second column. I have another vote for 5, which is somebody messing around, but okay, alright. So I think 2 is still a majority, right? So third row, second column. So we are going to start with that. Okay. So now let's ask, where do we want to do the second move? So remember, you don't want to take this all the way till the end, because if you cover everything, then the other player is going to win. Sorry? Yeah. So I'm saying if we manage to cover everything in this board, if it gets properly tiled and there are no gaps, then in the previous example we saw that meant that the horizontal player won, right? Because they will be the last to close the gap. So we want to make sure that some space is left. Third row, fourth row. Okay, so we're playing in the second half now. Okay. Huh? First row, fourth column. Okay, let's think about that. First row, fourth column. Yeah, so right now on the last column, all the possibilities are open. We can play at the bottom, the second row or the third row. One of these options, I don't know if we will... You should be thinking about trying to block the other player somehow, a little bit. So I think one of the logic of... Have you voted? Okay. First row, last column. Okay. That way you're kind of hoping that the horizontal player will not get both of those things in the bottom, right? Okay, let's see. What's everyone saying? People, how will we play in the fourth row? Fourth row is like you'll hit the roof. Right, right. But what I mean is my convention was that whatever number you tell me, so I should have limited these numbers to 1, 2, 3 only on both sides. Do you understand why? If you tell me fourth row, where will the upper half of the domino go? There's no space. So the most popular choice, I'm sorry, I don't know if you can change your vote, but you cannot play in the fourth row. Okay. All right, good. So we can only play in the third row. That seems to be the most common choice. And now in the third row, which column? We have two options. Actually, we have three options. We can play in the first column, the third column, or the fourth column. This mysterious fifth column, and you cannot play in the second column, people. We have already played in the second column, third row. It's a choice between do we take the last one or the last but one. Okay, right now it's third row, third column, so I'll wait for 30 seconds to see if anybody tips the vote on this one. Very nice. Alright, let's see. We'll play another round if we lose this one, don't worry. Okay, third row, third column, right? That's the. Okay, let me advance the question. And quickly vote which row do you want to play in. First row, if you're playing the first row, I essentially have only one option from the first row. So right now let's examine our options. We can either play here or we can play here. Yes, so we can play here, 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 or here, or here. So it's still 5 choices. We have 5 options. And if some of you are really committed to winning this game, you can work out what happens in each of those options. Actually in this case, isn't there only one? Yeah, hopefully everyone's got it. Okay, some of you are still voting for other columns, but first row is a clear majority. So we'll play at the bottom, and now there is no choice. So. Is it clear that any of the other options would be problematic? Because with any of the other options, actually you might still win. You're playing a pretty strong game. Yeah. Okay, that's true. Right, so the good thing is, okay, so even if you give, okay, so you can't go wrong here because even if you give them this move, wherever you play, you will still have one more left. So you have enough space. So actually, even if you try, you cannot lose this game. Is that clear? Even if you try, you cannot lose this game. But let's win it immediately. Alright, I think you should give yourselves an applause for winning this. Vertical wins. Okay, you want to do quickly one more round? It's hard AI, tricky AI will be a bit slow, I think. Hard AI is very slow. Okay, I don't know how slow hard AI is. Okay, should we put it to the vote? At least the first move, let's put it to the vote. generally start in... Okay, I don't know, is it the same person voting for the fifth row every time, or is it... different people messing around, okay. Like even 4 is kind of weird, but okay, I mean, it's a 4x4 grid. Give you that. Yeah, the options will make sense if I give you, yeah. It's just, we'll spend the entire 2 hours playing on a 6x6, especially if you think through your options. Okay, alright, second row seems to be popular, so let's pick second row. Which column? Some options feel like they're kind of symmetric. Yeah, so these options are symmetric and they're tied. Okay, alright, so second row, second column. The slow AI is fast. Yes. Okay, this is round 2. Ignore this, I think. Just, okay, let's just play this one because the next set of questions was meant for a 5x5. Okay, maybe just shout it out. Where do you want to move? This one, it feels... See, this slot you will not get blocked anyway. So this is in some sense reserved. But if you want to block the horizontal player there, you might have to sacrifice this. First row, third column. Okay, so you want to play here. Block the last one. Nice. Second row, last column. This smart AI is not very smart, is it? It's not even, no, it's not slow, but it's not smart. It's not smart. Okay, let's see if... I'm just making them play each other. I mean, I'm wondering, like, does vertical always win? Like, can they... empirical evidence is that vertical is always winning. Okay, let's do the other way. Let them start. I'm feeling bad for the computer, so let them start. Where do you want to play? Horizontal. Okay, this one or that one? Second row? Anyone else feel differently? Second row, first column? Now it's clear that you win, right? You won't lose. You won't lose because vertical has only one option left and we have two. So no matter what we play, vertical will have a response, but we will have a response after that. Yeah. So it's possible for horizontal to win. The only question is like, was the computer not playing optimally? This one is medium AI. This is why we shouldn't trust AI. Okay. Okay, so this one's, with a 4x4, I don't know if you can analyze the whole thing very easily. So let's just try to analyze it for smaller boards. Unfortunately, Kyle has made this, can I make it like, unfortunately, I think I have to edit the JavaScript also in this. Okay, 2x2. Whoever plays first wins, right? First mover advantage, there's no space. Okay. 3x2 vertical can easily block, right? Maybe I should change this to human. Yeah, so, okay, if the first mover is vertical as it is in this case, on a 3x2 vertical wins, because they have this move, right? It's a blocking move, horizontal cannot do anything. Okay. What about 2x3? Vertical goes first, so they cannot immediately block horizontal. Whatever they do, but look, no matter what you play, they also cannot block you, right? You cannot block them, but they also cannot block you. Okay, let's watch. So you make your first move anywhere. Okay. So in fact, vertical, even if they play badly, they will win, I think. Like, you cannot lose. See, normally you want a winning strategy, meaning that you can play smartly and win. Here, no matter how you play, you will actually not be able to lose. So because horizontal will necessarily get this one move, and then you will get this. And the cases are all symmetric, no matter where you start. Okay, what about 3x3? It's a little more interesting, I think. Are you empathizing with the vertical player or the horizontal? Okay, okay, let's think from vertical's point of view. Let's say vertical has the option to start in the center. Okay. Well, horizontal can either go here or go here. You block them. Right. So vertical, by playing in the center, has reserved this place for themselves, right? Where, they manage to block out horizontal completely, and it's symmetric if horizontal goes first. If horizontal goes first, they can block vertical, right? And they win. Right. So whoever goes first wins. Yeah, we're coming to 4x4. I'm just wondering if we should keep taking baby steps. What about this one? Can vertical do something similar? Now there isn't an exact middle, but let's try the same thing. But now horizontal has many more options. Vertical can block. Are you sure? It's not so obvious now, right? If horizontal plays like that, they have reserved two places for them that you cannot. They have reserved two moves. You cannot do anything about it. In fact, they've reserved. You can block them at most. You can block them here, okay? But they still have two moves, and you don't have it. But was that like, could vertical have started somewhere else and won this game? Corner. Okay, should we try? You guys play vertical, you guys play horizontal. So do you want to give me a response? You want to take the last move, that's the winning condition. Where do you want to play? Second row, this one? Okay. So you've reserved two moves for yourself, maybe some more. What do you guys want to do? You can't win it? You're again kind of out of moves. Yeah, it's a good move. Because no matter what you do, let's say we do this, that would be a loss, but anything would be a loss. Yeah, it's a fat board, so horizontal has an advantage. Long board is better for horizontal, even though they're playing second. Okay, let's switch it out, make it nicer for Okay, let's give them vertical. You guys have been fair. It's fair, but the thing is, somebody has this first mover advantage also. So the dimension might compensate for the first mover advantage. Here, both of these are in vertical's favor. It's long also, and they have first. Should win. Okay, I want them to go vertical. So where do you want to play? Second row, second column, okay. First row, second column, okay. Yeah, so now I think you have a luxury of choice. Again, I think no matter how you play, I think you'll probably win. But where do you want to play? Third column? This one, the top one? You have only one move left. You don't have a choice. And now you have actually two possibilities. So yeah, comfortable. Okay. Alright, so vertical wins. You should be able to prove that vertical wins on this one always and horizontal wins on the other one always. Yeah, the fat one. Like the fat board. Horizontal, even though they're going second, they should be able to win it. Yeah, it seems like they have more space in the appropriate. So for the square, for 3 by 3, we saw that vertical was winning because they could block in the middle. Yeah, I would say take a guess and try to prove it because I want to show you other games. Shall I leave this as homework? Yeah, sure. I think it should be fun to think about. You could play all the way up to 9 by 9. By the way, so I plan to play a 5 by 5 as well. Do you just want to play a? Okay, maybe let's see if. Okay, let's watch what happens for a couple of 5 by 5 games. There's the dynamic change. 6 by 6 is also. Okay, let's see what happens if both of them are trying to win. Okay, now it's slow. Okay, it's slow for bigger boards. Okay, maybe that was. Yeah, that's a lot of options. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, they got a little carried away, like big board and hard AI versus hard AI, but maybe that's. I think it crashed the browser, so. Let's try it again. If you've done proofs by induction, you might start thinking about whether what you have learned for smaller boards can be used for solving bigger boards. Or if you've done recursion, you might think if that's useful as a concept. But okay, so vertical wins this one. Try it again. The dominoes, what problem? Right. Right, but there your goal is to actually tile everything. Yeah, coverage, I think. Yeah. Right, yeah. Okay, so vertical won both times, right? Yeah, right. Right, okay, yeah. It's a 2 by n. Makes sense. Okay, that's vertical 2, horizontal 1. Okay. So yeah, it's nice to analyze. So domineering has been analyzed for up to I think 15 by 15 boards, and all of it has been done by like writing programs that explore all possibilities. It would be nice to have some combinatorial arguments that help you analyze this game. It's a very nice game to think about, but I do have other games to show you. So, like I said, the 4 by 4, even the 5 by 5, I think you should be able to think about all the cases and try and figure out who wins for sure. Okay? And also, like, are you convinced that one of the players always has a winning strategy? By a winning strategy, I mean no matter what the other player does, I should be able to win the game. Is it clear that one of the players must have a winning strategy, or is it possible that in some scenario, like, is it possible that neither player has a winning strategy? It just depends on luck. Well, it's possible that for different dimensions, different players have winning strategies. That's true. That we already saw. Right. Yeah, it feels like at least one should have a winning strategy. Correct. Exactly. So based on the dimension, different players were winning. Right. For the square, you have to check. Exactly. Well, let's fix a convention because it will be symmetric. So let's fix a convention that vertical always starts, and then try to argue it for a square. And then if it's true that vertical can always force a win on a square, then if horizontal starts, they should be able to mimic that strategy. Just like 90 degrees rotation. So that, I think that part is a matter of convention. Alright, so we played domineering. Now I want to play, like, sorry if there are chess players around. This is not like chess. This is just a single piece. Sorry? You're perfect. No, I was just like, you might be disappointed. This is not proper chess. This is a version of chess called impartial chess, and it's played with only one piece. Okay, so this is nothing like chess. It's just, I think it borrows the name because of the way the board is and the way the pieces move. All right, so what's happening here is that you have this sort of a grid. It could be any n by n grid, but I think I've just picked, in this case, it's not even a chess grid. This is 7 by 7, I think. Okay, so we have a piece somewhere in the grid, and it can only move downwards and leftwards. This is your left, right? Yeah, so, okay. So it can only move down and left. And it can move as many steps in any of these directions. Okay, so it's like a queen, except it's like a slightly handicapped queen which cannot go in some directions. So, yeah, it cannot move up, it cannot move right. And both players are trying to get the queen to get here, to reach this cell. And again, the spirit of this is whoever gets stuck loses. That's the, right? Because once you reach the bottom left corner, there are no valid moves left, right? Because the queen can only move left and down. So if you're at the bottom left corner, there's nothing to your left and there's nothing below. So again, the spirit of it is, if you're stuck, you lose. If you are at one of the last three, so that's exactly what I want to sort of talk about. Let's sort of analyze this. Okay, so I think I will keep track of, so I won't share the Menti screen, I'll just play this with you. Sorry, I keep doing this. I have to make sure I can, so here I'll just annotate it because I couldn't find a nice. Okay, but you folks should start off with. Okay, so let's pick a place for the queen to start. There are some places which are kind of obvious in the sense that, so this is that's our target square. Is that visible? Right, so that's the target square. So one thing that's easy is if the queen starts at any of these squares, then which player immediately wins? Player 1, the first player, right? This is like 2 by 2 domineering, right? It's a very easy game. If the queen is in one of these locations, then in one move you can bring it to your target square, right? So these positions, not so interesting. let's try maybe somewhere in the middle. So let's say our queen is here. And now you all can tell me on Menti in which direction do you want to move the queen, and then I'll ask you by how many steps. Okay. Okay. Go vote on Menti, because that way I will. There are lots of options, so I'm requesting everyone to vote on Menti so that everyone gets to think about it and participate, and then sorry? Yeah, you'll take turns. Yeah. Oh, actually, so then we should maybe be careful. Yeah, I could play with you, or can I trust you guys on one round only you people vote, on the other round only those people? Okay? Alright, yeah. Don't make them make a bad choice. You guys don't make them make a bad choice. Like, don't cross vote. Okay. Alright, so you folks are player 1 because you played 2 last time. So, player 1, tell me on Menti where you want to go. Can you guys see the Menti, like how other people are voting? Like, do you see the numbers? You don't see the numbers. Okay. Sorry? Oh, alright, you don't have the QR. Yeah, so the queen was in the second row from the top and the third column from the left. That's where it was. Okay, but it's not your turn to vote. Don't vote until it's your turn. Okay, alright. Okay, so we are going south, and the next question is, how many steps do you want to go south? So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah, there are some places you definitely don't want to go. Yeah, so these places that are good for the other player, right? So you don't want to move 1, 2, 3, and you don't want to move 5. 3 and 5 are both bad. So most of you are saying 4, okay? So you'll have to trust me on this one. I'm not showing you the Menti screen. Most of you are saying we should move, 6 people have said we should move 4 steps down. Okay? So the queen started off there, and this was the first move. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The queen is currently here. Okay. So now it's your turn. Player 2. Okay. Unfortunately, are you stuck? Sorry. You stuck. It's like one brave vote for going west. But yeah, notice that no matter where you go, they will be able to push. What are your options? Your options are here, 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 or here. No matter where you go, they can push. Okay. Alright, so they had a way of winning this one. Okay, so let's switch. You folks go first, and start here. So you're player 1 now. Make your first move. hopefully in a way that they're again forced to lose. Yeah, so it's, hopefully the symmetry is, so these are things that you want to avoid. You don't want to, if you go to any of these positions, they will win immediately. You want to avoid those. Okay. Alright, the top vote is for southwest. Okay, tell me how many steps do you want to go southwest? Okay. Some of you are like 3. Yeah. You guys voting? You guys voting? Okay, alright. You shouldn't do 3, right? You definitely should not do 3. So if you're going southwest and you take 3 steps, you'll end up here and then they will win in the next step. So you shouldn't do that. But most of you are saying 2. And some of you are saying 1. Okay, so hopefully it's clear. Yeah, so hopefully it's clear that if you move 2 steps, change the color. If you move 2 steps, what happens to you people? Yeah, you cannot win in 1 step, and unfortunately, wherever you go, they will win in the next round. Yeah? Okay. What if you went 1 southwest instead of 2? Then they can do what you should have done, and now you will be stuck, and they will win. Okay? So, right. Sorry? Yeah, right. You have to kind of work your way backwards from the target in some sense. Right. Okay, so let's see if we can do this exercise of, let's try this. What I want to do is, a lot of lag, sorry. I want to mark the cells based on who can guarantee themselves a win if they start at that location. So we'll mark it 1 if the first player can guarantee themselves a win, and we'll mark it 2 otherwise. Okay. So let's see if we can populate this. So I'm getting a bit. So let's say this is the target square. Right. So we know that all of these fellows are 1. That's clear, right? It's 1 move to the target. So if the starting point was any of these squares, then the first player had a single move that would take them to the target, so it's an immediate win. What about this one? Yeah, if I start here, then all my legal moves are labeled 1, which means that the tables turn, and the second player is now the first player after I've made my move, right? So they're going to win. This is what was happening. So, right, so that is called, that's called impartial chess with a king. So that's basically instead of a queen, you have a king. They can do one move at a time. So that's actually a great question. Let's come back and analyze that, because even the bottom row will change, right? It will be, right. And you should think about how the bottom row will change. So if it was only 1 step, it'll be based on parity. Is the question clear? The question was, what if instead of a queen you had a king? They could move only 1 step at a time. Actually, you could play this game with all of your favorite chess pieces by restricting their movement in this direction. So you could take a rook, no diagonal movements. You could take even a knight, but they cannot do like those sideways, right? Sorry? Yeah, king is, so in fact there's a very nice YouTube playlist that analyzes it for the king. So I don't plan to do it in detail, but certainly you can, I want to capture the observation that was already made for the bottom row. So let's say you're doing it just for a minute, let's say we're doing it with a king, which means 1 step at a time. So this is a win for the first player, because in 1 step they can reach the target, right? What about this? Well, from here, I can only go, like there's no other place. So I can only go left and only one step. So I'm landing at the place where the other player is going to win, right? So this is 2. And now it'll alternate, right? So this is 1 again, because from here I can only go to a place where 2 wins. And then 2 will be forced to take me to 1. Hopefully that's clear. So if I'm the first player here, all my moves are basically forced, right? So if I'm the first player, I'll go here, go here. It's not very helpful. So this is the first player. This is the second player. And this is the first player again. So since, okay, if you're playing on the bottom row, as a king, you don't have to think about which move to make, because you don't have a choice. There's only one move. And so the game plays itself out. As players, you don't have to do anything. And then it's just a matter of your luck. If you're a first player, you are hoping that you start out on an even position. And if you're the second player, you hope that you start out at an odd position. Right? That's what it would be for a king. Okay, but let's come back and think about what happens for a queen. Sorry, was that a question? So, okay. So these are both second player wins, because the only places they can reach, okay, sorry, these are second player wins because the first player can only transition to a position that's a first player win. That sounds like a good thing for the first player. I can only go to first player wins, except that the polarity of the player changes after I make my move. After I make my move, the person who started as the second player is now the first player. So if I go to something that's a first player win, I'm handing them a winning position as a gift. So I'm going to lose. And all my moves are like that. I don't have a choice. Right? Okay, what about the next interesting position? Maybe, what about this? So the point is, if the first player can avoid a 1, right? Right, it's the first player, because why? What should the first player do on their first move? Yeah. Get to a place from where the second player is guaranteed a win. Right. Does that make sense? If you get to a place where the second player can guarantee themselves a win as the first player, I want to go there because I'm going to be second player, right? Yeah, I will become the second player as soon as I make my move. So if I see that I can go to a place where the second player is winning, if it's good for the second player, then I'm happy. So I should be taking that move and I have a win, right? So now, like I think you all pointed out, so whatever I can reach from this 2 is good for me. Yeah, it's all 1 winning. Even the first one, you can think of it, yeah, all of these.
Can you see some things now? This is also one because it's the diagonal. Did I miss it? Oh, I missed the bottom. I missed the bottom diagonal. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, actually, sorry. This is, yeah, that is, sorry. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Let me make sure that I'm, yeah, so let me just make sure I've populated everything correctly. I think I missed a few. There are actually lots of ones. So once you have this 2, right? Once you have this 2, all of this is good for you. Does that make sense? From the 2, everything that, huh? Oh, my mic stopped working. Sorry. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Okay, I will try to yell. I don't know if this will be good for the recording, but does this make sense that all of these are ones? right? Because from here you can get to a 2 and then you become 2 and then you're happy. So these are all ones. Now finally, do we get some twos again? So 2 is a place where you only see ones around you. Yeah, all the reachable positions are a 1, then you are in. Make sense? Yeah, this is maybe a 2. A 2. Because again, just to confirm, all of these guys, these are all ones. So if one starts here, no matter what move they make, they go to a place which is good for the first player, which they no longer are. They are going to be the second. So this is good for the second. Yeah, the battery is out. Unfortunately. Arun, it's gone to check. Anyway, we are over an hour. Maybe this is a good time to just get a bit of a stretch. I would ask you to think about what's the pattern here. This you can write like you've all written recursive programs. If you've done some dynamic programming, you know this is like a 2 by 2 DP table, right? You can populate it in the appropriate order. So now that I've seen some more twos, from this to everything that is reachable will again be a 1. And you keep going. So like this, you can do this. And you could ask, like, given a location, is it a 2 or a 1? You can try to figure it out recursively. But it turns out that there's actually some really beautiful math around this. So let me see it. So it turns out that there is a closed form for the kth 2 position, some sense. So remember these twos have like, they show up at certain intervals, right? I mean, so we saw that there's a pattern and it seemed like ones were much more frequent than twos, right? We saw lots of ones and there are a few twos that are scattered. So it turns out that if you zoom out a bit and you draw, maybe you can write like a matplotlib or I don't know what's the right thing. Something in Python will generate this dibba with the ones and twos. So you can make all the ones gray and make the twos red and do it for like, I don't know, 10,000 by 10,000 grid. If you do that, the twos will look like 2 lines, like in a V shape. And those are the numbers where the golden ratio comes from somewhere. Okay. And all right, so the mic is fixed. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here there is this term called a cold position. A cold position is a position from where one loses. That's kind of, they call it hot and cold sometimes. But for now, let's just say a cold position is a position from where one is. So there is this whole, this terminology comes from this, something that's literally called temperature theory in combinatorial games. I will not talk about it because I don't know much about temperature theory. It's sort of a continuous way of analyzing game positions, and you talk about positions being hot, cold, warm, depending on how it's looking for the first player. A cold position is an extreme position where it's hopeless for the first player. They cannot do anything. And it turns out that there is a, I'm not going to prove this, I'm just showing you this slide so that hopefully it is somehow inspiring. I think it's completely crazy that that this game with these really simple rules lends itself to these, like these are number sequences. These are called the BTE sequences. They show up in number theory, but those same number sequences basically characterize the positions that are bad for the first player. And it's kind of, to me, it's completely amazing that there is such a neat characterization of what's happening for the first player that's hidden with these really simple rules. The rules are simple. You can go and play this game. Like I said, take your favorite chess piece and try to play it. And what happens with the king is also very, it's a very nice question to ask. So in fact, there's somebody called Elvin Berlkamp. He's an absolute legend in the field of analyzing games like this. Sadly, no more, I think, but he has a YouTube channel where he has this phenomenal playlist where he analyzes. So I'll share the link to these notes/slides with you. You can go back and look at it if you're interested. So he calls it impartial chess, and the first video is actually about the king. And then after a couple of videos, I think he analyzes the rook and the knight, the other two pieces. And what we were looking at was the queen. Okay. All right. So that's the couple of games I wanted to start with. I want to play two more games with you. I want to play NIM. How many of you have played NIM before? NIM. NIM. Probably played Sim. I don't know. That's like video game. No. Yeah, this is, I think it's a world building game. There's a mathematical game called Sim as well, but that's not as well known. But we'll play NIM and we'll play another game called Hack and Bush. These are the two games that I want to play with you. And I want to develop some definitions. So let me actually, now I have a simpler set of slides to work with. So just give me a second. So do you guys want a break at this point, or are you happy to continue? No stress? Okay. Okay, so NIM is again a two-player game. You're going to keep track of which player is playing with the red and blue on top. The board for NIM is a collection of heaps. Okay, so there are n heaps of stones, pebbles, whatever. Okay, you can take a few coins or a few pieces of anything that you have to play this game. And let's see, so what happens in one move? Let's say blue is going first. What the blue player has to do is they have to pick a heap and then they have to select a certain number of stones from it and remove whatever they've chosen. So you can pick a heap and you can remove any number of stones that you want. You played this with a different name. What's it called? Okay, all right. Different numbers of stones? Oh, same number. Oh, I see. Same number to start with. But once you start removing, it will become different. Okay. Alright, so now it's the red player's turn. They can do the same. You're allowed to take out an entire heap. That's fine. You can empty it if you want to. And again, you might ask who wins. And it's normal play. In normal play, the last player to move wins. Okay. So I am not coming here as much because I've been instructed to not, like I think the camera viewing angle is only from here to here. So anyway, you pick a heap and remove as many stones as you want from it. And so this is also an opportunity for me to tell you a little bit about the kinds of games we have been looking at. Okay, so this one and domineering and impartial chess. These are all games that were turn-based, 2 players, right? So we took turns. There's no passing. You have to make a move on your turn, okay? So it's proper turn-based and it's played between 2 players. Notice that it's deterministic, meaning that if I make a move, it's going to happen. It's not like cricket where you say that, okay, I'm going to hit a 6 on the next ball and it happens. Sometimes it happens if you are a certain player or whatever. But anyway, the point is that many games that we play, like sports, or if you're playing poker or whatever, where there's randomness involved, right? Things may not always go your way. If you're playing blackjack and you say hit or stay, if you know what blackjack is, things, you hope that they'll go your way, but they may not, okay? I mean, yeah, if people, like I said, if you're a very skilled player, in whatever it means to be skilled in the context of that game, but unfortunately in most sport, you might know what's the next best move to make, right? But you may not always be able to make it, because just because you've decided, it may not manifest as you hope, okay? But these games are deterministic, so there's no randomization, there is, you decide to do something, that's what's going to happen. So it's always your fault. You cannot say there was wind, or you cannot say that was a bouncer, no excuses, okay? So that way, that's one characteristic of these games. These games also have perfect information, meaning that the entire state of the game is visible to both players at all times. Do you know games where this is not true? Poker, right? Yeah, so typically card games, rummy, the games where you have your hand close to your heart, right? And you don't put all your cards on the table literally. Right? So there are games which don't have perfect information. A lot of card games involve hidden information that's available to only one of the players, and they try to take advantage of it. And often your moves depend on your being able to estimate what information other people have. So more information is usually good, but here there's no unfair advantage coming from who is able to, who is able to analyze missing information better. All the information about the game is out there for everyone to see. NIM is an example of an impartial game. So is the queen game. Impartial means that both players have the same set of moves to themselves. That's why I say it's impartial chess. Normal chess is partial, okay? Yeah, you have your own pieces. The black player cannot move the white player's pieces. The white player cannot move the black player's pieces. Even domineering was in some sense not impartial because the vertical player cannot move horizontally. The horizontal player cannot move vertically. So depending on whose turn it is, a different set of moves is available to you. Okay? So depending on the time we have, we'll look at NIM is impartial. Both players have the same set of moves. If we have time and we look at hack and bush, that will again be a partial game where different players have different moves. Okay? Alright, so the convention we have used is normal play. This is what I told you before. The last player to make a move is the player who wins. The other convention is that the last player to make a move loses. Okay? Have you ever played tic-tac-toe where you're trying to avoid making a line? Not, you should try that. So that's like the Misra version of tic-tac-toe, where you win if you don't make a line. So you should try it out sometime. You're so tuned to trying to make a line. It's fun to try and avoid making a line and see if you can always draw like you do with regular tic-tac-toe. So that's the normal convention is sometimes flipped. You can also analyze those games, but here we'll stick to normal convention. So notice that because it's normal play, there are no passes, turn-based. These games have no draws. Somebody will always win. These are finite games that will be played till the end, and somebody is going to get stuck. Okay? So that's why there are no draws, and we want to know who wins. Two reasons people win. You win because you play well, but you might also win because some other reason. Yeah, the other player may play badly. That can also happen. Like you know that there was a pathway to winning, but you somehow managed to miss it because, okay, yeah. So if you are the other player, you might have missed, like maybe you could have won, but you missed, you blundered, and that's why your opponent won. That happens all the time. But when we are doing mathematical analysis of combinatorial games, we are going to be talking about forced wins. So we'll keep saying things like the first player wins, the second player wins. That doesn't mean that the first player can never lose. So when we saw AI versus AI playing 6x6 domineering or whatever, sometimes horizontal was winning, sometimes vertical was winning. But that's because some mistakes were made somewhere. Okay? We should be able to prove a claim like the first player can always win, but if they don't deploy the winning strategy, then what can you do? Sometimes they might lose. Okay? But we want to prove things like the first player always wins. Okay? And sometimes all you know is that a strategy exists, but you may not know how to compute it. Those are also sometimes interesting situations. Okay? So this is called a winning strategy. It's basically a formula that guarantees you a win. Formally, a strategy is a function that takes a position of a game as input and gives you a move as output. It tells you what to do in a given situation. That's a strategy. And a winning strategy is basically one where as long as you follow what this function is telling you to do, you're going to win. Okay? And the question we were asking earlier also about domineering was that, can we be sure that at least one player has a winning strategy? An easier question is going to be, can both players have a winning strategy? What do you think? Right. You see that if both players claim to have winning strategies, what happens if both of them play their winning strategies against each other? Yeah, I mean, the game will end. There are no draws. Somebody will win. Whoever won, the other player's winning strategy was a fraud, right? They have to go back and ask for a refund. This was not a winning strategy. So that's your contradiction. Okay, so both players cannot have a winning strategy. But is it possible that neither player has a winning strategy? And it might be. So let's let's maybe try a few examples and then we'll come back to this question. Okay, I should keep an eye out for the time. Sorry. Okay. All right, I think we're doing fine. Okay, so the game of NIM, let's go back to the game of NIM and analyze it a little bit. Okay. Baby steps. What if you're playing the game of NIM with just one heap of pebbles? Who wins? The first player. This is just like if the queen is on the diagonal or 2 by 2 domineering. Okay, very easy. One heap, the first player takes it all away. What about two equal heaps? Okay, the first player. Should we try playing this? The last to take wins, right? So think about if both heaps have just one pebble each. Right. Yeah, so I don't want to go back and forth between the iPad and this. So let's say it's 9 and 9, and let's say again, who wants to be first player? Okay, your first player, somebody from their second player? Okay, perfect. So first player, what do you want to do? Remove 8 from the first one. So you want a 1 and 9. What do you want to do? Remove 8 from the other heap. Pick a heap and pick any number of pebbles you want from it. Right, remove one and he'll remove the other, whichever one you want. Right. So the first player. Okay, sorry, what was your confusion? What did you think you were not allowed to do? Oh, I see. Is that how you play your version of the game? You have to go one after the other. No, so here in NIM, you can pick any heap you want and you can remove any number of pebbles you want. You cannot remove pebbles from two heaps simultaneously and you cannot pass. You have to remove something. But pick any heap and remove any number of pebbles. So sorry, I think there was some confusion with the rule set, but now do you see that, what's the vote everyone? If two heaps have the same size, who wins? Okay, our second player just won. You're not convinced. You think he got away with luck. You want to try again? 9 and 9. I'm very happy to be second player. Does anybody want to take a first move? Okay, sorry folks, something happened. It looks like my Zoom died, but it doesn't matter. We are playing anyway, so the internet is working here. I can just get it. Okay, it looks like we've had a sort of an internet issue and my slides are online. So let's see. Okay, while we're waiting for the slides to come back up, let's keep going. So, okay, does anybody feel confident about a second player or a first player strategy? Anybody feels like they have a strategy, then they should play. You're trying to get to 1-1. Sure. Yeah, I mean the point is if the other player is kind enough, like if the first player is kind enough to make one of the heaps 1, then you can make the other heap 1. But the first player may not do that. They may do something else. Right. So I think you folks have it already. So I will. There's something weird about the way this is made. Sorry, folks. I think this is okay. I just don't know how to get rid of the whatever on top. But this looks nicer on my screen. Okay, so as some of you have figured it out already, the second player can win by copying. Does that make sense? Whatever the first player does, they copy their move. Okay, so the first player removes 4, the second player removes 4, and basically as soon as you're basically maintaining an invariant that both heaps have the same size. Okay, so you can force a win. Notice that this is an interesting property, okay. What is a losing? Okay, these are two things that are important about this property that both heaps have the same size. One thing is that no matter what move you make, if both heaps have the same size to begin with, they will no longer have the same size after your move is made. Okay, so if the property was true, the property that two heaps are equal was true, after a move is made, it is not true anymore. But now if you give somebody two heaps that don't have the same size, they can always make a move that makes the heaps equal. Okay? There always exists a move that restores the property. Okay? Every move may not restore the property, but the important thing is that there is some move which will restore the property. Okay? And this property, the losing position, which is like two heaps of size 0, where you cannot make any moves, that losing position also has this property. So the point is that if you start with this property, the first player, no matter what they do, they will lose the property. The second player will restore the property, and you keep going. And at some point, the first player is going to lose. Right? Does that make sense? So, so here are all NIM games that have equal sized heaps, and that side is sad because 0, 0 is in there, and that's a losing position. That's where you immediately lose. You have nothing to do. And these are the good guys. These are all NIM heaps with unequal, all two heap NIM games where the heap size is not equal. Okay, so what happens is that if you start here, then no matter what move you make, for every move you end up in this state. You end up with an unequal state. But if you are here, then there is exactly one move that will make it equal again. Right? Take the bigger heap and from that remove the balance. Right? Yeah, so it's 90 to 100, remove 8 tokens from the 100. That's what it is. Okay? So there is a move that takes you back there. So the first player, so if you start here, the first player will always be forced to come this side and the second player can push him back that side. Okay, right? Does that make sense? Okay, for the two heap nim game, these properties are very simple. For more challenging games, if you can find some property which has this template, that you can divide your games into two parts, where on one side the losing state is on one side and they all share some property, and the rest of it is like those states don't have the property. And if it is true that you can, no matter what you do from the red bucket, you come back to the green bucket, you have no control. You have to come back to the green bucket, but from the green bucket, I always have a way of pushing you back to the red bucket. In that case, the second player wins. Right? That makes sense? Okay. So just by this logic, just to sanity check, if you start with two unequal heaps, who wins? Okay, if they were equal, who won? Player 2. So if they're unequal, player 1, right? Because they can equalize it and give it to player 2. And equal is bad for whoever starts with equal. If you have equal, it's like, yeah, it's like having an open hand grenade, you toss it, but it'll come back to you, it'll keep coming back. Yeah. Okay. So here, you can equalize it, give it to the second player, and now player 1 will win, because now they can do what player 2 was doing before. Okay, so now let's move on from two heaps to, in general, n heaps. Again, simplest version of n heaps is what if every heap has just one token. This is like the king, yeah, right. This is like the king moving on that bottom row, no choice. It doesn't matter which heap you pick. And once you pick the heap also, you don't have a choice. You have to pick the only pebble which is there in that heap, right? So none of this is a choice. So this is just a matter of odd or even. Okay. If it is odd, player 1 wins. If it's even, player 2 wins. They can always match. Okay, what if every heap has two tokens? Okay, so you want to combine the things that you've seen so far. You've seen something about mirroring. Okay, fine. So what if there are like an even number of things and I can group them like this? Now who wins? Player 2 wins because they can mirror within each group, right? So wherever player 1, so player 1 does not see this bifurcation, they just see a bunch of heaps. But in player 2's mind, the heaps are divided like this. So wherever player 1 chooses to play, player 2 will go and equalize that. That's in their mind. Yeah. So by ensuring this, they basically group, mirror and win. Okay. And now by some logic that you have seen before, what if the number of groups is uneven? Player 1, yeah, player 1 can create the situation that was bad for them before. They can create it and make it bad for the other player. Yeah. Okay, this personality disorder is an issue in this literature, but like player 2 becomes player 1 after one more, player 1 becomes player 2 after one. Fine. What if every heap has one or two tokens? So let's say we have A heaps with two tokens and B heaps with one token. What do you think? Yeah, depends on even or odd. So what if both A and B are even? Okay, if both A and B are even, it's kind of easy, right? You can again mirror and group, right? So that's easy. Okay, what if this is not the case? Meaning, there are now three more cases, right? A is odd, B is even. Both odd, both odd is one case. One of them is odd, the other is even, are the two other cases. And they're not exactly symmetric because it's 1 and 2, so we'll deal with everything. Okay, what if A is odd and B is even? Then what? Player 1. So we have A of these heaps and B is even, so B you can mirror. So again, you can knock out one of those heaps in the middle and then it will create the situation that was good for the second player. So that's player 1. What if A is even and B is odd? Same thing. Correct. You have to remove from the. It's again player 1. What if both of them are odd? Okay, so in this picture, are they both odd? Can you think of one move that makes both of them even? That's what player 1 wants. Right. Yeah, same thing. Remove one token from one of the two heaps. That makes both of them even. Right? And now again player 1 wins. Player 1 wins the overall game. Okay. So this is again this property, right? A plus B is even. If A plus B is even, then that is something that, well, no matter what move you make, right, you are going to destroy this. Right? Whether you remove one of the one heaps, one of the two heaps, or you remove one from one of the two heaps, you cannot maintain A plus B is even. Right? But if A plus B is even is not true, then you can always make A plus B even by the 3 cases that we saw. Right? So if A plus B is even to begin with, then the second player wins. Otherwise, the first player wins. That makes sense? Okay. Alright, let's do one more example and then we'll make some general comments. I don't think we are going to have time for a hack and bush, but let's at least maybe get the hang of NIM a little bit. Okay, who do you think wins when it's 1, 2, 3? Okay, let's just do the cases because there aren't too many. So let's say player 1 removes the one heap entirely. And this is always bad for whoever starts. So if you give it back to them like this, they're going to lose. Right. So player 2 wins. So this is bad for player 1. Player 1 should not start with this. Suppose, we'll do all the cases. There aren't too many. So suppose they take 1 from the 2 heap. What can player 2 do? Right, but if A plus B is even, player 2 wins, but after player 2 makes a move, they become player 1. So they should be careful about doing that. Can you do mirroring? As in, can you make, is there one move which gives you 2 heaps of the same size? Remove all 3. Yeah, right, remove the third heap entirely. That works. Yeah, that's it. So this is not good for player 1 because if they do this, player 2 has a response, has a winning response. What if the first player removes the second heap entirely? Correct. 2 from the last one makes it 1 and 1. Yeah? Is everybody okay with overall what we are doing? Is somebody totally lost? Yeah? We're just going through the cases of what you have 3 heaps, 1, 2, 3. We are going over what are all the possible first moves that player 1 has, and we'll see how player 2 can respond. So this is also bad for the first player. What if they remove 1 from the first heap? Knock this one out. Okay, so this is also bad. What about this? Yeah. Knock out the middle one entirely. So this is also bad. This is the last hope, but not so much because here also. Right, so player 2 does this and then. Right. So this is a situation where player 1 loses. No matter what they do, player 2 has a comeback. Alright. What about this? There's just one extra heap and it has some number of tokens. So 1, 2, 3 was good for player 2. Right. Player 1 just cleans out that big heap, okay? Yeah, it doesn't matter how many tokens there are. They just knock out that whole heap. They make it 1, 2, 3 and give it to player 2. Okay, yellow. You were winning last time, but now I win because now I'm player 2. Okay, make sense? Yeah. So if you know that you can get to something that's bad for the other guy, you're good. Okay, so fine. All right, sorry. The slides were slightly advanced. Now you can do 3 heaps again, but basically like 1, 2, 3 again. But now I have P heaps of size 1, Q heaps of size 2, and R heaps of size 3. Now again, I will not probably bore you with, like you can do a bunch of cases, more or less mirroring, grouping, just a little more detail in terms of handling the cases, but you have to do like a little more work, but you can sort of understand what's going on. So it's some parity-based arguments, you have to do a bunch of cases. All right, so this is the condition that you will eventually come up with. E1 heaps, Q2 heaps, R3 heaps. Player 2 can force a win if and only if this condition is true. So you have to show both things. You show that if this is true, player 2 can force a win. If it's not true, then player 1 can force a win. So this I will leave as an exercise. It's doable. It's just a matter of making some observations. Let's go back to this question that we asked, because for all the cases that we analyzed, it seemed like we were able to come up with a winning strategy for one of the players. There was never a case that we couldn't come up with a winning strategy for one of the players. So is this a more general phenomenon? So again, this is for finite combinatorial games, which is all those properties that we saw: turn-based, 2-player, deterministic, perfect information. What else was there? There was something else. And normal play. Normal play you can adjust, but basically it's important that it's perfect information, deterministic, turn-based, 2-player, and the game tree is finite, meaning that it's not, the games don't go on forever, so there are no draws. Okay, so suppose the first player starts with some state of the game. This is some abstract game. I'm arguing in general about all such games. So it could be NIM, it could be, so the other property was impartial, but as it turns out, let's see, you're not going to specifically need impartial. This works for both kinds. So the first player has a bunch of options, and let's state this as an inductive hypothesis that on all smaller games, it's true that if you are turn-based, deterministic, perfect information, 2-player, then and finite, then one of the players has a winning strategy. Let's say that that's inductively true. So whenever I make a move in a game, right, I diminish the size of the game in some way. Okay, so this is something that has to be true of the game. That's why it's not like if you have these games that can go in circles where things keep coming back and things can go on. Like chess, for example, is a game that can go on forever, right? Because technically, like this is how I play chess with my friends. I just keep taking the knight out and put it back, take the knight out and put it back. My friend does the same, so we're both crazy, you can do it forever. Right, so that's why the official chess rules have to make it finite by saying that you cannot repeat a position more than 3 times, I think. So if you see the same configuration a third time, then that means that the players have agreed to a draw effectively. And sometimes, I think recently there was a game where one of the players missed a draw, right? Because I think I see. There was one game that I remember that, I don't really watch, so I could be completely wrong, but there's something that came up on social media where I think this was Prag and Gukesh or something. Yeah, and I think, he did not intend to make this, he did not intend to make this move, and I think Prag observed that this is the third time that this configuration is showing up, so it's a draw. And it surprised the opponent is what I remember, because they were not intending to draw, but they repeated something that had happened a few moves ago. So the players also have to remember everything that they have seen so far. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, theoretically, chess can go on forever, but you force it to become finite by saying you cannot repeat the same configuration twice. Here we are looking at finite games that diminish every time. So there's some concept of size, so I'm not getting into the formalities here, but intuitively when you at least you can see it's true of NIM, right? The total number of pebbles decreases after every move, right? So it's a finite number of plays, okay? Similarly in domineering, the total number of empty squares decreases after every move. What else did we play? Chess with the queen going downwards. in some sense, the Manhattan distance from that target square is reducing, right? Because you are making progress in one of the directions. So basically, this argument applies to games where when you make a move, there's some sense in which the game becomes smaller. So in the smaller game, you can apply the inductive hypothesis, the induction hypothesis if you like. And so now we ask ourselves, in this game, whoever is starting from here now, right, who is winning? The hypothesis tells us that every such smaller game has a winning strategy for one of the players. We don't know who, right? So what if the player who is here, the player who is active here, the second player of the original game, has a winning strategy in all of these games? That's like, remember how we populated the 2s? Because you saw a 1 everywhere, right? No matter which position you go to, you see that the first player wins, okay? So this red player is the second player in the global game, but they're the first player in this world, right? Because a move has been made, and when you have come here, you are starting this game now, right? So from that point of view, from the red player's point of view, they are now the first player because they are making the first move, right? So this was this 1-2 thing that we always had. So well, let's suppose that whichever player this is, whichever player is starting here, let's say that they have a winning strategy and they happen to have a winning strategy in all of these instances, right? Then what can we say about this guy here? Is there any hope for them to win? No, right? Because no matter which move they make, they look at all their valid moves, right? They look at all their valid moves and they see that, well, no matter which move they make, the other player has a way to win. That's the gift of the induction hypothesis. This is one of the cases, by the way. But in this case, hopefully it's clear that the overall game is won by which player, the red player or the blue player. Okay, this game on the top here, the blue player is kind of helpless, right? Because no matter what they do, the red player is winning, right? So these games are owned by the red player. They're starting and they can win from here, right? So if no matter what move you play, the other player has a winning strategy from that smaller game, right? Then you are going to lose and the other player has a winning strategy in the overall game. We saw this phenomenon in all these examples whenever this was happening. Like, remember 1, 2, 3, right? All the moves that the first player tried, the second player had a way to win all these smaller games, right? So the overall game is won by the second player, right? Does that make sense? Okay, all right. What if this is not the case? If this is not the case, that means, well, if not all the dibbas are red, what is the negation of that statement? Yeah, there's at least one blue dibba, right? Not all dibbas may be blue, but if it is not the case that every dibba is red, then there is at least one dibba that is blue. The induction hypothesis tells us that every box here is either red or blue. It doesn't tell us which is which, how many of which, none of that. So our cases are all the boxes red? If yes, then the overall game, the second player has a winning strategy. Otherwise, there is at least one blue box. Now in the overall game, who has a winning strategy? The first player. Is that clear? Because now they see a pathway to success, right? They see that I can go here, and when I go here, this is a game which is a second player win, but when I transition there, now I am the second player, so I get to win. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So this is like, yeah, I mean, this is the flipping phenomenon that we saw happening a few times. So if I can make it good for the other player, if I'm standing here and I see after some move I can make I can go to a state where the opponent is guaranteed a win, I'm about to become that opponent, right? I'm not going to be the active player once the move is made. So that's where I want to go. So in this case, the blue player has a winning strategy. So in such games, in this class of games where it's kind of finite, so here the point is that one of these things will always happen. Either everything is red or at least one blue. You cannot have some quantum states here because the induction hypothesis guarantees you that every smaller game is either blue or red. Okay? So you have to formalize all this with use the principle of mathematical induction, work out the base cases and all of that. And for an appropriate class of games, in particular, very importantly, games that are finite, clearly they have to be turn-based and 2 players because you're alternating layers in this game tree, and deterministic and perfect information because that's just what the setup is. For all such games, I think this is even called by some people the fundamental theorem of combinatorial games. One of the players has a winning strategy. Okay, so give me any rule set, you can invent your own game. I may not know who has a winning strategy, but I know that one of the players definitely has one. Okay. So, but then depending on how complex the rule set is and so on, it may not be easy to find such a winning strategy, but one of the players definitely have one. Okay, so in the last 5 minutes, I'll just tell you about a little bit more about NIM. So we had all these kind of special cases. At some point, you get tired of doing the special cases because you're like, you know, can there be a general thing which says that, okay, I have some K heaps, they have some sizes, can't I just look at it and tell you who wins this game? Okay, and it turns out that I think this was way back in the, I don't know, first half of the, whatever, 1900s sometime, I don't remember the exact date, but there will be a reference that comes up, so we'll find out. But somebody thought about this a lot, and they kind of observed this mirroring grouping patterns and realized that somehow powers of 2 play an important role in all of this. So, so again, I'll skip all this motivation, just tell you directly. Okay, so there's this very general property that you can come up with, which is this notion of a balanced position, which basically says take the sizes of your heaps and write them as sums of powers of 2, which you can do in a unique way because you know about the binary representation, right? So every number in like, so your heaps can have these arbitrary sizes. So write them out as powers of 2, and the point is you basically do a histogram of like, you know, how many 0th powers of 2 do you see, how many 2's do you see, how many 4's do you see, and so on. And if all of these numbers are even, then roughly speaking, the second player can win by doing this grouping and mirroring. It's not very direct because like a 7-sized heap is not given to you as 4, 2, and 1. So this grouping is in your mind, but like you have to argue a little bit carefully that the second player can actually win in this case. And if this is not the case, then the first player can win. So basically that's the theorem. It's called, this is the starting point of what is known as Sprague-Grundy theory. But this particular thing was, let me see if, this particular thing was in this very cute paper. It's a very short, very readable 5-page paper by Booton. And the way he puts it is write the numbers in binary, take the XOR because that's the XOR sum. If the XOR sum is 0, that means on every column you had an even number of bits, right? XOR is like 1 plus 1 is 0, right? So if one column in your binary representation adds up to 0, that means the number of ones there must have been even. So there were an even number of that power of 2. The ith bit is like 2 raised to I. So you were seeing a balanced position if the XOR sum is 0. Okay. So this I think is like a very clever solution to a very interesting game. But that's not only why it's significant. It's great, but it turns out that this paper was the starting point for a much deeper theory of combinatorial games. So there have been follow-up papers by Sprague and Grundy, which is this fascinating theorem which says that no matter what game you define, it's basically equivalent to a game of NIM as long as it's turn-based 2-player, deterministic, perfect information, and impartial. Okay? Impartial is important. As long as you're playing an impartial game, you can come up with totally crazy rule sets, but whatever you define, there is a very mathematical sense in which it basically is NIM. It's equivalent to NIM. It's the same as NIM. So if you know what's going on in the NIM game, you know what's going on in your game, which in some sense makes combinatorial games boring, because you're saying, of course, you've understood NIM, and so you've understood every combinatorial game ever. But of course, people still analyze games individually, because not every aspect of the game is captured by this equivalence. But for the basic question of who wins, that's answered because of this equivalence method. So this is a very powerful theorem. It's the starting point of a very beautiful and a very deep theory around combinatorial games. And these equivalence classes of NIM games, that every game is equivalent to one of these NIM games. Those equivalence classes are given by numbers, but because the numbers represent NIM games, they're called nimbers. So another reason I kind of really like combinatorial games is that the people who work in this field have crazy names for everything. So they and they tend to have a sense of humor when they're writing. So when you read these papers, you will definitely be entertained. So Berlkamp, along with Richard Guy and John Conway, they wrote a series of books called Winning Ways for Your Mathematical Plays. That's the absolute Bible of this field. They came up with a lot of interesting math around these games. We did not do, partial, we did not do Hackenbush, but, okay, so I realize I'm out of time, but if you have some time, search for, so these are the three authors, Berlkamp, Conway, and Guy. There is a lovely video called Hackenbush, a window to a new world of math. It's a 1-hour video, it's pretty intense, it took me several sittings to go through the whole thing. But it's totally worth it. It's beautifully done. The music is amazing. Everything about it is amazing. So if you have a chance and you want to learn about Hackenbush, which is the one topic that I wanted to talk about but I didn't, this is a video to check out. So this should preserve any curiosity that you may have hopefully experienced as we played these games. So okay, hopefully I'm not too badly over time. It's exactly 4 o'clock. So I should stop here. Thank you again for coming. And thank you for being such a sport, literally. Yeah, thanks a lot.